I don't know about your opinion, but I felt sorry for almost every one of our monsters. Even though they were ready to kill us at the first opportunity, I would have liked to see a happy ending instead of a painful death. Hello everyone. Let's think about whether we could have saved all the new characters, because to be fair, we are the ones to blame for their death. Whether we influenced it directly or indirectly is completely irrelevant, because either way we saved ourselves. And in the midst of these thoughts, I came up with the idea of how we could save our characters and how it would affect the plot of Poppy Playtime Chapter 3. And our first victim, and therefore the first person we will try to save, will be the lovely Miss Delight. To be honest, this is the character I want to save the least. I still remember with a shudder when I completed the level with her. Obviously, she is probably the most mentally ill character of all, and she's been in that state for a long time, so it doesn't make sense to blame her for wanting to taste our flesh so badly. I wish I could go over there and just talk to our teacher, but on the other hand, we all know what's in store for us. Let's remember the scene of Miss Delight's death. She was crushed by a metal door. And it's our fault, of course, but we could just leave the lever on to keep the door open. But then we just die, and we don't like that option either. And we cannot just leave the door open and run away because the game itself will not let us go any further. But in the end, Miss Delight is to blame for her own death, because I did not call her to me and she threw herself under the door of her own free will. I wondered why our teacher tried so hard to run before the door closed, and if you think it was because of us, you're wrong. Remember the story of the hour of joy when Miss Delight and her sisters were locked in the room and she developed a fear of starvation that has stayed with her ever since. And I'm sure that as soon as we started to close the door, her mind went right back to those times of starvation, and she certainly wouldn't want to do it again. And when you think about it, it wasn't us that killed Miss Delight, it was Catnap. But let's say we could run away from her without closing the door, or we could close the door before she got close to it. But what would happen to the plot? To be honest, almost nothing would change. If we closed the door before Miss Delight got close to it, she would just end up back in a situation where all the doors around her were closed and there was no food, and most likely a few more years would pass and she would just die. And if she continued to chase us, I don't think it would affect the plot very much. At least we wouldn't be able to be friends with her because she's so loyal to Catnap and Prototype. I won't say that Miss Delight is an extra character because her story is the most fascinating, and I can definitely say that Miss Delight is the scariest character of the entire third chapter, and maybe even of all the chapters of Poppy Playtime. Who among you was really afraid to play with Miss Delight? But unlike the other characters in this video, Miss Delight's death is the most harmless. The Prototype wouldn't have made her body stronger, that's all. We'd probably just be able to run away from her and forget her existence forever, or it would have been a perfect decision on Mob Entertainment's part, because having Miss Delight return in Chapter 4 would have been a very interesting plot twist. The next one we're going to talk about is a character that a lot of Poppy Playtime fans would really like to save. I'm talking about Dog Day, of course. He is the kindest of all the characters in this video, and I would really like to help him. But how can we help him? If we look at his body, we can see that some of his limbs are completely missing, which means that our dog has already lost a huge amount of blood. But let's say we were able to untie him and take him to a quiet place where his wounds would be stitched up. But in that case, he would still not be able to walk properly, and the only way for him to get around would be to crawl. And given the abundance of Smiling Critters toys in the area, they would have found him sooner or later and killed him anyway. Dog Day would have had to die anyway. As far as we know, Catnap was able to subdue the consciousness of the toys, and now they have gone from good characters to bloodthirsty creatures interested only in death. And we couldn't physically take Dog Day with us, because that would be a trap for us. Too bad for poor Dog Day, but I guess that's his fate. In this video, we have already mentioned several times a very mysterious and very interesting character, Catnap. And just his death was the most mysterious of all, because he was not killed by us, but by his patron Prototype, and for me, it was very strange. Everyone remembers that thanks to the electric glove, we were able to immobilize and weaken Catnap, but he was still alive, and if it wasn't for the Prototype, it's likely that Catnap would have attacked us. And what if at the moment we shot Catnap, we would immediately try to recharge the glove from the cat, and at the moment the Prototype appeared, we would try to shoot it specifically, but this is impossible, at least because at that moment we are in a scene where we cannot control the action of the game. But can we theoretically save Catnap? Of course we can. We can poke the Prototype, or we can pull the cat closer to us so that the Prototype can't reach it. But I'll be honest with you, that would be our biggest mistake. Let's say we rescue him and we're left alone with him. I think Catnap wouldn't think twice and would jump on us to kill us. It is also very unlikely that Catnap will think of us as his savior and become our ally. We have said many times that Catnap is the Prototype's most loyal assistant. He literally considers the Prototype to be a god, and because of that, He will remain loyal to the prototype even after the rescue, and nothing good will be waiting for us. What will happen if we shoot the prototype with an electrified hand? I can't even begin to imagine the wrath of Catnap. We wouldn't get away with just dying. Most likely we will be brutally abused, and only after that Catnap will play with us and decide that it is time to end our lives. As I said, Catnap did not die after our shot. He just got weaker. And that's when the hand of the prototype appeared. And that's what saved us. I think that scene was a sacrifice for a higher purpose. I'm sure that once we weakened Catnap, the prototype decided that it didn't need that character anymore, because it couldn't give what we saw before, so it was time to take his body for itself. And Catnap himself understood this very well, and that's why, even if we saved him after Catnap killed us, he would come to the prototype to give his body to his god. So there is absolutely no point in saving him, even though many of you, including me, would like to. The only character whose kindness we do not doubt at all is our favorite friend Missy. What really happened to her at the end of the 3rd chapter is still the biggest mystery in the entire Poppy Playtime universe. This question even managed to push the mystery of the prototype's appearance into 2nd place. However, most fans came to the conclusion that the screams Kissy made in the final scene were cries for help because some monster was killing her. And since this is the most popular version, we'll go with it. Missy is the character I can say with 100% certainty that we need to save. Not only is she a monster that supports us, but she can also help us fight the prototype in the future because, as you can easily see, she has a pretty serious body size, and we could really use a giant like that. The final scene of the 3rd chapter has aroused the strongest emotions among the fans, and of course many of them wish that Missy will be okay in the end. Let's take a look at the possibilities to save our pink friend. It is clear that Missy will still be useful to us, and the fact that she stayed upstairs is no more than a coincidence. Objectively, any one of our trio could have pulled the lever to send the elevator down, but it was Missy who stayed up. But why did we leave Missy alone then? We can say. Because it is clear that sooner or later someone would have attacked her. But the important thing to realize here is that no one thought of leaving Kissy alone. Poppy's whole plan was for someone to take the elevator down, and then they would send the elevator back up to pick up the remaining character, and in this case it was Missy. Apparently there's also some kind of lever at the bottom like in the previous scenes. And apparently Poppy was 1,000,000% sure of her plan and thought it was as foolproof as a Swiss watch, because she couldn't even think of anyone who would dare attack Missy. And you have to remember that Missy is a pretty strong character who can stand up for herself. But how could we have prevented this situation? The answer is actually quite simple. We should have left someone else in charge. But who exactly? As we realized, Missy is the worst option, just like Poppy. If we can live without Kissy, it's much harder without Poppy. So the only option is for us to stay, and that's where we have to think more globally. Will we see the monster or not? I think we probably will, and we'll have to fight the monster. But what if Missy was the target of the attacker? Of course this option cannot be excluded, and if it is true, we will not even know who was the killer of our favorite Missy. And the most interesting option is the decision to send down only Poppy and Use together with Missy to stay upstairs and find out who was the villain who wanted to destroy Kissy. But these are just theories, and in fact the plot of the game will not allow us to do this. But to speculate on this topic was very interesting. I hope you enjoyed this video. Write your thoughts on this video in the comments and don't forget the feedback. Bye bye everybody. Bye bye.